Hey guys, thanks for checking us out. Today we're going to be looking at the process of creating this simple but expressive little logo sting. I'd imagine it would fit quite well with brands on their social media platforms. And here we're using a logo we created for a fantasy football team called the Midtown Vikings. Anyway, so feel free to incorporate any or all of the techniques here in your own logo stings, or if you have a cool specific idea that you have a question regarding, shoot us a message in the comments down below. Otherwise, if you just want a quick logo sting, check out our product's simple and minimal logo stings. I'll have them linked in the description below. Alright, so in motion what we're going to do is go File, New, and what we're going to be doing is creating a simple 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames a second title. We can actually drop down the duration to around 5 seconds, depending on how long you want the ending to last. Alright, so straight away let's just get rid of the group that comes automatically. We're just going to create our own group, and this group we're going to call background. Now what this is going to be is the background that's on screen for the first 1 or 2 frames that you see, and in our version it's white. So I'm just going to have a solid that fills the screen here. I'm just going to make sure that it's in the middle. And let's just check its dimensions are bigger than 1920 by 1080. Yeah, that's all good. Alright, so that's going to be our main background. The next thing we're going to do is create another group. And this is going to be those 3 slabs that come on the screen. So what I'm going to do is call this slab 1. Okay, so let's turn off this background now. In this slab 1, let's create a rectangle, and I'm just going to put it on there. In geometry, what we want it to be is 1920 divided by 3, because there's going to be 3 on the screen. So what we can make this is 640. Then our height can just go very big because we want it to rotate around later, so it needs to be quite big. And then I'm going to just also set this to the middle. And then we can change this also to slab 1, just so we remain organized. So what we want to do is start off with its initial animation, which is a super quick scale in. So what we're going to do is have that over 3 frames between frame 6 and frame 9. And I'm going to use this by animating the X. So at 6 we want this to be 0, and then at 9 we want this to be 100. And then I'm going to go into the keyframe editor and boost this quite a bit. So what I want is initially for it to shoot out and then to slowly move in, and you'll see that represented on the curve here. So it moves out quickly and then slows in. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, over 3 seconds, that's what, or rather 3 frames, that's what you're going to get. And then from there, what we're going to do is a second movement on the group slab 1. So that's the initial movement, and that's what we're going to do a lot with the animations in this example, is 2 movements, one on the object itself and then the second on a group parent. So we're going to have that scaled at 120 at frame 0, and then this scales all the way into 106, and here we're going to scale it to 90. So also let's change the curves on the curves in this one. This one we want it to ease very much in, but also have it ease quite a lot out. So it's going to be quite a quick movement. So now if we play that back, you'll notice that we've got that smooth little movement out and then in. In fact, what we might want to do is just move this keyframe back 1, 2, 3 if you can. It just puts the 2 motions closer together. Okay, so now what we can do is give this slab a color, and we're going to give it a gray color. So let's make it about 35. And what we're going to do now is duplicate the slab twice. So I'm going to call this slab 2 and the slab 3. Alright, so slab 2 goes 3 frames before, and then slab 3 goes 3 frames later to 3. And what we want to do also, because these are going to be 2 by the side, so this is going to be minus 640 on the X position. And this one's going to be 640 on X position. So now what we do is we change the color of slab 3, and let me just rename it here. Alright, so let's quickly see. Alright, so there's just one mistake that we've made here, and that's that these slabs shouldn't end at scale 80 bit or rather 90, but rather 100. So if we just change that on all of them. Now it will fit. Okay, let's play that back. Alright, cool. So that's the first part of our logo sting done. So let's just call this all just background. And you can turn that bottom background layer on now. So now let's just select all of them, right click and say group, We can call that BG, and we can turn that layer off for now. We don't need it until later. So now what we're going to be doing is doing the initial circle that comes on the screen. So I'm going to select a circle and make the shape here. From there, I'm just going to center it out, 0, 0. Then in shape, I'm going to set the radius in geometry, and that's to 110. Alright, so now in properties, we can start animating the position. So we're going to start animating at frame 0 at minus 310. And we can set a keyframe there, and then move along to frame 23, and then change the position on Y to 40. And then let's also go ahead and change those keyframes. And what we're going to do is have it ease all the way in, and then around about 3/4 of the way out. So around about there. Okay. So that's position on circle. The next thing we're going to be doing is setting the scale, and that's from the start. We're going to actually have this peg back a bit, so it's only going to start scaling at frame 5, and we're going to set that to scale 0. But what we're going to do is have that animate in before the position. So at frame 23 is when the position comes in. We're going to animate the scale to come in at frame 22. So that is to 100, and again we'll just go into the keyframe editor, and just like before, we'll pull this all the way out so that it eases in 100%, and then only eases out around 3/4 of the way. Alright, so that is the initial movement that we have, and then from there we're going to have the animation of it going back down and out. So what we want to do is select that circle again, then move the cursor to frame 14, and then what you want to do is go into shape and then keyframe your radius. Then move to frame 26, and then keyframe 0 in your radius over there. Let's bring up that keyframe editor once more. And then from here, what we're going to do is a little bit differently. We wanted to ease out a little bit more this time, and inwards just slightly, just like that. So that what that means is the animation starts out a little bit slowly, but at the end it gets quite quick. So as you can see here, slow out, and then quite a quick ending. But what we just don't have here is the movement that comes down. So what we can do now is create a new group. I'm going to call this actual circle, and then put that group inside of it. And then after the other position animation, so it starts around about 6, and we're going to keyframe the Y position here at 0, and then move to frame 25. And we want to move this thing right down, so let's maybe see minus 355 should do it. Then bring up the keyframe editor, and again you want this one quickly out, so maybe only around there, and then have this animate all the way to there, so that it slowly and then shoots. So let's just call this circle 1, because what we're going to do now is create another circle. And what this is going to be is the sort of rectangular circular shape. It's, we're going to use a circle to make it, so we'll start pressing out there, and let's just center that. Now go into your shape and into geometry, and change the radius here to 125. And the difference now is we're going to change the curvature from 100 to around about 50, so half of 100. That's the shape we're going to go for. Okay, so we're going to start using this layer from round about frame 22. So let's just click and drag out here. And then what we're going to do is select the circle and then scale it from 0, set a keyframe. Then we want to move ahead to frame 107 and have that its full 100 here. Alright, let's ease that all the way in. And then the out must only be 20% or so. So it's a faint push out. Alright, the other thing we want to do is animate the rotation at this point. So we need to find the Z rotation and keyframe it also at frame 22. But this time we're going to go all the way to 122. And then I'm going to set that keyframe again. So depending on what you want here, if you want it to end as a square, you can have it end at 0, but we're going to have it end in a diamond shape. So we're going to have it end at 45. Then at the beginning rotation, what you want to do is set it to around minus 440, minus 450, minus 460. So it's basically 1 full and a third revolution. And then again, what we're going to do is have this ease in all the way because what we want to do is have that sort of flick out animation, that shoot out, and the object's then settling down. So you can see that rotation shoots out along with the shape, and then it slows down towards the end there. All right, so this is circle number 2, and what we're going to do now is create another group and then put that group in it. So circle 2 goes in group number 1, and then group number 1 we are also just going to call it circle 2. So with this group, what we're going to do is have it scale down over a second. So around 26, just after it starts scaling on, we're going to set a keyframe, but this time I'm going to set it for 120. All right, then we just go forward a second to 126 and have that scale down to 80. All right, so what we can do also is go into keyframe editor. So what we're going to do here is imitate those first curves we did. Now, if you don't have the arms that come out of the keyframes, what you can do is hold down Command and then click and drag out, and now press Alt. Oh, right, never mind. All right, so if you don't have the arms for the transitions, what you can do is select the keyframe and now hold down Command and Alt and then click and drag. Oh shit. Oh shit. All right, if you don't have arms for the if you don't have arms for these keyframes, what you're going to do is select the keyframe, then hold down Command, then hold down Shift, then click and drag, and then you'll have the 2 arms, and you can drag it all the way this time to 100. And now you'll notice only the Y scale worked there, so what we're going to do is just do this separately. So we've got Transform X, we've got holding Command down and click and drag it out. And then we also want it to go around about 70%, so over there. And then the same goes for Z, and the same goes for Y. Just click and drag, and you don't have to worry about scaling the Z keyframes. Yeah. All right, so that's our little shoot down at the end there. All right, so now what we're going to be doing is creating the drop shadow behind the circle 2. So what we can do is duplicate that group, then just call that circle 2 drop shadow. All right, cool. So make sure that circle 2 is in front of it, because we obviously want the shadow to be behind it. And then drop down all the way, find circle 1. We're going to just call that DS to designate drop shadow. And in style, what we're going to do is change that to black. All right, cool. Okay, so we got the drop shadow there. What we want to do is now add a Gaussian blur. Okay, so we're going to start the amount from 0, but it's going to be at the start of the Gaussian blur layer here at frame 22. So let's keyframe that. All right, then go a few keyframes ahead around about 105, and let's boost that up to about 75. All right, so you can see the drop shadow coming out there. Let's also now keyframe the opacity. So we're going to start that at frame 23, and we're going to find opacity and set that at 35. Let's keyframe that. And then at frame 105, we want it to go to 0. And then the last thing we need to do is go down to where you see the DS that we named earlier, and then go to its last keyframe and then change that to 120 so that it grows bigger than the block in front of it. And that means that it's visible behind it, as you can see right over there. All right, so all that leaves for us is our actual logo. So what we're going to do is create a new group, and this time I'm going to call that logo. Okay, so then you can import your logo. So this is the logo we're going to be using here. This is the Midtown Vikings logo. So we're going to just scale that down, basically get it to the size we want it to be and the position that we want it to be at the end. And what we can also do is just change our color for the background just to get that color right. Just use the color picker. All right, cool. So we've got all our colors looking right there. All right, then select your logo. All right, what we're going to do here is actually keyframe the group so we can swap out and put another logo or perhaps even a drop zone in there instead. So we're going to keyframe the logo group first. We'll start that animation close to the first second mark at frame 26. And then what we're going to do is position it all the way up at 510. Okay, so set a keyframe there on Y at 510. Then move forward to 117. And then over here, what I wanted to do is actually go past 0 to minus 25. First, let's edit the curves over here. And what we're going to do is a super quick movement. So we're going to have this animate all the way to 100%. And then this to animate to 90. So over here, you can see the action is happening all in the space of about 2-3 frames before that ease in and that ease out. Okay, cool. Now create another group. Also call that logo, drop the first logo group in the second logo group, and then go ahead to frame 110, 111. And then what we're going to do is keyframe the position there. And remember, on this first logo folder, what we did was to send it past 0 to -25. And this is where we're going to make up for it. So we're going to set a keyframe for 0 at frame 111, and then move ahead to 2 seconds, and then set that to 25 so that it moves back into position. And then we're going to say show in keyframe editor. And what we're going to do here is to have it ease all the way, and then only slightly bit like that, but it's going to shoot back so it gets big, or rather so that it goes down and then shoots back up quite nicely. So let's actually just move this a little bit further behind, and we can even move this a couple further frames. Alright, so what we're also noticing here is that our logo comes in too early, but that's fine. We can just have it start from here and then be able to check it out. So that looks great. So as I mentioned before, let's also give ourselves the option to put a drop zone in here. So object new drop zone. And let's actually scale this down, and automatically it's going to come with a widescreen like that, but we want this to be for a logo. So what we're going to do is just crop on either side, the left and the right. So make that 420 and 420 over there, and then find the scale and into position, which is -25. Okay, so we can just make sure that this is published, as well as the position and the scale for those controls inside of Final Cut Pro. And also obviously just want to set an opacity parameter for this, and we're going to just set it to 0 in the meantime. What we also just want to make sure is that our drop zone starts earlier on here. Then what we also need to do to the logo is just add an image mask, and then make sure that circle 2, put circle 2 in there, but then make sure to click circle 2 on again. So now this logo is masked by this box. So if this background was a different color, you won't actually see this logo on it. So the last little problem that we've noticed is that our circle goes way too low, and all that needs us to do is to just group it. We'll just call that circle 1. And then in our properties, we'll go into Y, and we'll make this around about 100. Let's just see how that looks. Maybe even a little bit more, 150. And that looks perfect. All right, guys, let's save this. And we're just going to call this simple logo intro in tutorials. Then we'll go file new library. And we're just going to call this test simple logo. Then create a new project, and we'll just call this sample and hit OK. So let's go into the titles and then find where you've saved out your logo intro. Mine's over here in the tutorials folder. So we can bring that in. And so our logo intro is working perfectly. But let's also try this. So let's take off the opacity of that one logo and bring in the opacity of the drop zone. So what we can do now is import another logo. Then use it in the drop zone and say apply clip. So now you have the option to change your logo inside of Final Cut Pro. So if you have quite a few logos, this is probably the better route for you to take. Okay, so hopefully you guys will be able to use some of these techniques in your own logos things. If you have any more questions, shoot those down in the comments below. I look forward to answering them. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Cheers, bye.